Hi, it's Monday, November 3rd, and we're tracking severe tropical storm Kalmaegi, Philippine named Tino in the Philippine Sea this morning. The system is continuing to gradually intensify and will likely become a typhoon before making landfall in the central Philippines later tonight or early on Tuesday morning. Thereafter, on the South China Sea, where we'll likely see some re-intensification occur on approach to the eastern coast of Vietnam. Now, so far, we have not seen the system quickly or rapidly intensify up to this point. We talked about yesterday how the convective structure of the system did look favorable for a upcoming phase of quicker intensification, but one key detail in that going forward into the day-to-day was how did the storm react to some increasing easterly shear, which is increasing now and will continue to increase up to landfall. And what we saw was the system did get disrupted some, and we saw the vortex tilt with height. And I can show you this very clearly if we look at some of the microwave data that we got overnight. And this is showing you where the surface vortex is. You can see the cyan circle here showing you the surface center. And note how this is directly on this 130-degree east line of longitude. And if we compare this to a mid-level view of this, is the same microwave path just in the mid parts of the troposphere, showing you the mid-level circulation, we'll see that this is centered a little bit west of that 130 line, indicating that we do have some vertical tilt towards the west with height. And that is to be expected with the shear that we're having take place now. If we take a look at the GFS sounding, we can see primarily focusing on this part of this graph. Near the surface, we've got light flow, and in the mid parts of the troposphere where the mid-level vortex is, we've got 10 to 15 knots of easterly flow impacting the storm. And so this means that the mid-level vortex is tracking towards the west or being pushed towards the west a little bit faster than the surface vortex is. So that's contributing to some of the vertical tilt that we have seen in this microwave data. And really, the question going forward is how does the storm continue to react to this increasing easterly shear? If you take a look at the GFS sounding forecast going towards landfall, you'll see in the deep layer shear value, which is right about here, that it does continue to increase to very significant values up to landfall tomorrow morning. You can see it goes from about 8 knots to about 21 knots. And as that increases, we see the system's deepening rate decrease on the model, likely because that vertical tilt is maintaining on this forecast and keeping the system from, say, quickly or rapidly intensifying. Now, in a scenario where the system is able to be more resilient against this shear, that may allow a quicker phase of intensification. And one thing that does go in the storm's favor this morning is that we do see this favorable convective structure showing up again, with this curved band structure of thunderstorms wrapping into the center of the storm. And if this does persist and is able to be resilient against this increasing shear, that may allow the system to quickly intensify as we near landfall later tonight or early on Tuesday. And those are more of the high-end solutions that we're still seeing on some models. Now, the high-end intensity, I think, has come down quite a bit. We talked about the Google DeepMind ensemble, which several of them showed this becoming a category 4 yesterday on the Saffir-Simpson scale. I think the probability of that has decreased significantly today, just with the sheer impacts that we've seen over the past 24 hours. And I think the more likely high-end scenario is a category 3 equivalent. But I think the most likely thing here is that we have a category 1 or a category 2 equivalent, which would be gained towards that strong typhoon threshold as we go into landfall here again, likely early tomorrow morning. And I think the model that has the best handle on this is the European model. If we go back to landfall on this, this is about Monday evening local time, and what you'll see is that the system is still tilted with height. It's a little bit hard to see because there's a lot going on this map, but the black contours here is a surface center, and the black wind barbs in the green is the mid-level wind barbs. And what you'll see is the maximum rotation in the mid-levels is offset from the surface center. So still seeing in this model that vertical tilt take place. And that keeps the system from rapidly deepening on approach. But it's still likely a typhoon in this forecast, maybe category 1 or category 2, which could cause some significant impacts here going into the night tonight and early on Tuesday. And for that reason, we do have now signal 1 and signal 2 warnings being issued across the central Philippines, and we'll likely see some signal 3 warnings issued as well, especially near the landfall spot later today. And the current forecast from Pagasa has this becoming a typhoon later today and intensifying steadily up to landfall on early Tuesday. Now, the landfall time has been pushed back a little bit Yesterday we were talking about Tuesday morning. Now we're talking about late tonight or very early on Tuesday. The current Pegasa forecast is about 2 a.m. So we've decreased it by a few hours. So I may see conditions deteriorate a bit earlier this afternoon and into this evening than originally thought. Now, going forward in the forecast of the system, it will likely decrease in intensity some as it interacts with land in the Philippines. Now, as it moves back over water into the South China Sea, the environment may get better and more suited for re-intensification to occur. If we take a look again at the European model, as it moves over land, again, you can see the pressure rise a little bit there with the land interaction. And as we move back over water, we still have some vertical tilt apparent in the structure of the system, still signifying that we have some significant mid-level shear still impacting the system directly. But as we move over the open South China Sea, we'll see on the model the vertical tilt gets better and the pressure begins to lower at a more quick pace, likely indicating that the shear magnitude has decreased some on the model. And if we take a look at the HAFS model, which is a high resolution hurricane model, we can see how much the shear has decreased. Now remember, near landfall in the Philippines, the shear is forecast to be around 20 knots. And if we take a look at this sounding from this model, it's now down to about 15 knots. Now that is still moderate shear values, but it's much more manageable than 20 knots. And so this may allow the system to recuperate itself and try to realign those two centers vertically and allow the system to re-intensify at a more significant pace. And models are in general consensus that we'll likely see a more significant phase of intensification over the South China Sea when we near landfall to Vietnam. And we can see this very clearly if we look at the Google DeepMind ensemble. You can see again there's that intensification east of the Philippines, likely a little bit too strong here. I think the DeepMind ensemble is going a little bit too aggressive on the forecast pre-Philippines, but nonetheless you can still see the weakening take place as it moves over land. But as we go over the open South China Sea, we see these numbers move back into the purple colorings, showing intensification that does occur here on approach to Vietnam. And this is not just the Google DeepMind ensemble. The HAFS model shows this, and even the European model shows this as well, going towards landfall. And so the expectation going forward for Vietnam is that we'll likely have a strong typhoon intensifying across the South China Sea later this week, and the landfall spot is likely to be somewhere in the central part of the coast. That's where a lot of models are honing into. For southern Hainan, we may still have to watch it a little bit. There's still some outliers like the GFS deterministic run, which does bring this a little bit further north, which may bring some adverse impacts there this week. But the more likely scenario is that we have the storm making landfall here in central Vietnam. And as the current forecast as well from Pegasa, you can see it coming back offshore. They do show re-intensification in this part of the forecast, and then a landfall very close to where the Google DeepMind ensemble is in central Vietnam. And this may be, more of a likely scenario where we see a Category 3 or Category 4 equivalent typhoon approach the eastern part of Vietnam here. So we'll have to watch that very closely for the next few days. I'll have more videos on this as it does approach Vietnam, and we'll talk about it as well once it makes landfall in the Philippines tomorrow. And we'll have to see exactly what it does today. Hopefully it struggles a bit more and we don't get a very strong storm impacting the Philippines today, but still something to watch exactly what it does in short term to see exactly how strong the system may get. But stay safe in the Philippines as this comes in tonight into tomorrow. That's all that I've got for now. Thanks for watching.